Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're digging into a pretty radical idea from the world of farming, one that basically flips a century of pest control on its head. It suggests that this whole war on insects, well, maybe it's a war we shouldn't even be fighting. So, let's get into it.
Okay, so let's just start with a really basic question. For as long as we've been doing big-scale farming, we've been taught to see certain insects as the enemy, right? They're pests, and they have to be destroyed. But what if that whole way of thinking is just wrong?
I mean, for decades, modern agriculture has pretty much treated fields like actual battlefields. And the enemy? Anything we decide to label a pest. The weapon of choice? A whole arsenal of chemicals designed to, wipe them out completely.
And this has locked farmers into this really frustrating and super expensive cycle. The pests show up, you spray them. But, nature is incredibly resilient. The ones that survive, they breed and they pass on their resistance. And pretty soon the pests are back, a lot of times even stronger, and your old chemical weapon is totally useless. It's this endless arms race that, honestly, nature is probably always going to win.
And this is exactly where the wisdom of pioneers like Masanobu Fukuoka comes into play. His whole argument was that this war is a problem we created ourselves. He looked around and saw that nature, when you just leave it alone, is perfectly balanced. It's our constant attempts to control it, to dominate it, that cause the very problems we're trying so hard to fix.
Now, this same idea led another farmer, Akinori Kimura, who, by the way, became famous for growing these miracle apples without a single drop of pesticide. It led him to this really profound realization that came straight out of his own struggles.
So he just looked at a wild mountain, and what did he see? A thriving ecosystem. I mean, nobody's out there spraying it, nobody's fertilizing it, and yet it doesn't have these huge pest outbreaks that you see on a typical farm. And the biggest difference? Well, a farm is usually a monoculture, just acres and acres of one single plant. A mountain, on the other hand, is just bursting with all kinds of different life. So, what's the mountain's secret? Well, it's not some magic formula. It's a really basic principle of nature that modern farming has kind of ignored for a long time. The power of a complete, functioning ecosystem. And this brings us to the absolute core philosophy of natural farming. It's asking for a pretty radical shift in how we think. Stop treating the farm like some sterile factory floor and start seeing it for what it is, a complex living ecosystem. This practice, it's known in Japanese as Shizen Saibai, and it actually goes a step beyond what we think of as organic farming. See, the goal isn't just to swap out chemical stuff for organic stuff. The goal is to add almost nothing at all. It's all about cultivating the soil's own natural power and just letting nature do its thing.
So, in this way of thinking, a pest outbreak, that's not the actual disease. It's just a symptom. It's nature sending up a big, flashing signal that the whole system is out of whack, that maybe the soil is weak or the plant itself isn't healthy. The pests are just nature's cleanup crew, really. They're just coming in to take care of a plant that was already struggling to begin with.
And there's real science behind this. Ecologist Shuichi Sugiyama explains how it works. When you have a rich variety of plants and insects and microbes, you create this incredible, complex web of life. So yeah, the aphids might show up, but so do the ladybugs that love to eat them. No single species can just take over, because there are always predators or competitors or parasites keeping everything in balance. The system, it just regulates itself.
Okay, but this is where the whole philosophy gets really fascinating, because it basically dissolves our neat little categories of good bugs and bad bugs.
I mean, everybody loves ladybugs, right? They're like the poster child for a beneficial insect. They're the little heroes that protect our gardens from all those destructive aphids.
But what happens when the aphids, their main food source, disappear? Well, Akinori Kimura, our miracle apple farmer, he saw exactly what happens next. As his orchard got healthier and more balanced, his aphid problem just went away. But the ladybugs, they were still there.
And what do you think they did? With no aphids left to eat, they turned to the next thing they could find, his apples. The ladybugs, the ones that were once his allies, actually started damaging the fruit. His greatest helper had suddenly become a pest.
And it just illustrates the central point so brilliantly. Those labels, pest and beneficial, they are completely artificial. They're just human judgments. In nature, an insect is just an insect. It's playing a role that is constantly changing, all depending on the health and the balance of the entire system.
So the really crucial thing to get here is that natural farming isn't just a list of techniques. It's a complete shift in mindset. It's all about working with the complexity of nature
instead of constantly fighting against it.
Akinori Kimura lays out a pretty simple framework for this. First, you align with the natural ecosystem around you, you observe it, you mimic it. Second, you just don't use any chemically synthesized materials, period. Third, you trust the plant's own innate potential to grow. And finally, you focus everything on revitalizing the soil.
Now, this is a really important distinction to make. As you can see in Fukuoka's work, natural farming is not the same thing as just neglecting your farm. A neglected plant can turn into a total mess. The natural form you see here, that's been intentionally guided to be in harmony with its surroundings. It's all about careful observation and making these small, thoughtful adjustments that help the whole system thrive.
Really, at its heart, the farmer's job isn't to force a plant to grow. It's to create an environment where the plant wants to grow. The whole goal is to observe, to listen, and to just help the crops feel comfortable where they are. And this shift in perspective, from fighting a single problem to nurturing the health of the whole system, it has implications that go way beyond the farm. Think about it. In our own health, in our communities, in our businesses, how often are we just spraying pesticides on the symptoms? What would it look like if we tried to cultivate a balanced ecosystem instead? If we created an environment where problems just can't thrive in the first place?